everyone, and good evening. Welcome to the Linglobe channel. This time, we'll be bringing you content about preserving the world's languages for the future. Please enjoy it to the end.
Welcome to Linglobe Voice.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, so today our mission is to take you on a really cinematic journey into the Karen people, their language, and their incredibly enduring culture.
Absolutely. And we're going to be drawing all our insights today from the Linglobe materials, which I have to say paint just this incredible picture of survival and adaptation.
Yeah, it really does. So to set the scene, looking at our first slide titled The Voices of the Highlands, we see this breathtaking, mist-covered landscape.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It really is. It serves as this atmospheric anchor for a culture with a deeply rooted heritage. But, it immediately makes you wonder, how does a community so organically tied to these ethereal, sort of shifting highlands manage to clearly represent itself visually to the rest of the world?
Right. And that is the essential question for literally any group trying to maintain its identity.
Yeah.
I mean, physical geography only tells part of a community's story. You know?
Exactly.
For the Karen people, the need for a singular unifying visual symbol became, absolutely paramount as their society started interacting with much broader, imposing political forces. They needed something tangible to rally around.
Right. And to see how that identity finally took a physical shape, we can look at our next slide. Moving to the next slide, the emblem of national unity. This breaks down the fascinating timeline of the Karen flag.
It's a great timeline, too.
It is. The drive for a distinct visual identity was really sparked back in the 1930s. This was during the British colonial era, right?
Exactly.
A time when having a defined flag was just a crucial mechanism for political recognition. And by 1935, a man named Mon Bakin, who was representing the Karen National Association, he actually won a parliamentary competition with his design.
Which is wild, right? And the momentum for that competition was just immediate. I mean, in 1937, the flag was officially raised for the first time at the Karen New Year celebrations in Younger. And you really have to understand the historical weight of that moment.
Yeah.
It was a massive, very public cementing of their ethnic pride in an era where minority groups were, often marginalized or just completely absorbed by larger colonial frameworks.
It's effectively early open source cultural branding. I mean, they recognized the political reality of the 1930s and basically crowdsourced their own identity to solidify who they were on the national stage.
Right, totally.
But, of course, a flag is just a piece of cloth. Its actual power comes entirely from the symbols printed on it.
Yeah, which brings us to the slide titled Decoding the Symbols of Heritage. The visual elements chosen here are, they're incredibly deliberate, and each one carries generations of meaning.
Right.
First, you have a rising sun radiating with 9 distinct rays. And those rays represent the 9 traditional regions of the Karen people, while the sun itself serves as a universal symbol for eternal hope.
Yeah, and below that you find the frog motif.
Right, the frog.
In their culture, the frog is deeply tied to prosperity, fertility, and the life-giving arrival of the rainy season.
Yeah, but I want to pause on the most striking feature, though, those prominent buffalo horns right in the center.
Oh, yeah.
The Linglobe materials mention that, historically, buffalo horns were used as physical instruments to call scattered communities together.
I just love that sensory image. Imagine standing in those misty highlands we saw on the first slide and hearing the deep, resonant echo of a buffalo horn cutting through the fog to gather a village.
It is literally a powerful auditory memory made visual, and all of those elements sit on a tricolor background.
Right, the red, white, and blue.
Exactly. You have red, which stands for bravery and sacrifice, often referred to as Karen red blood. Then there is white, representing purity and spiritual integrity. And finally, blue, which stands for loyalty and honesty.
It's so comprehensive.
What is brilliant from a sociological perspective is how deeply agrarian, earthbound symbols, like a frog calling for rain or a buffalo horn, are woven seamlessly together with high-minded abstract ideals like loyalty and purity.
Yeah, it really grounds their highest virtues in the actual soil they work. But looking at those 9 rays representing their traditional regions, it begs a geographic question.
What's that?
Where did the people who revere these regions actually come from originally?
Ah, right. That question is answered in the slide, the ancestral journey from the north. If we trace their linguistic and migratory lineage back, it forms a really fascinating map.
Yeah, it
It
does.
starts broadly with the Sino-Tibetan family, narrows down to the Tibeto-Burman branch, and finally filters into the Karenic subgroup. The historical timeline places their arrival in their current geographic region somewhere between the 6th and 10th centuries CE.
Okay, so that means they migrated into the area after the Mon people had already established themselves, but before the arrival of the Burmans. Which puts them in a uniquely precarious position. I mean, if you are a group that historically wedges itself right between 2 other massive migrating populations, the natural assumption is that your culture will just, get absorbed.
Right, totally.
How does a group maintain its unique identity when sandwiched in that kind of demographic pressure cooker?
It takes an immense amount of cultural resilience.
Yeah.
They absolutely held on to their core ethnic identity, the traditions, the beliefs, the community structures.
Yeah.
However, while their identity held firm as they settled into this new geography, their language undeniably collided with their new neighbors.
Yeah.
Because when languages share a border for centuries, they just inevitably start to trade mechanics.
Right, they bleed into each other. And we see the result of that collision on the slide, the syntactic shift.
Yeah.
This highlights a massive foundational grammatical change.
Okay.
The ancestral Tibeto-Burman languages used a subject-object-verb, or SOV, sentence structure. So for
Yeah.
you listening, an SOV structure means you would say something like, I, the apple, eat.
Right, exactly.
However, centuries of cultural collision and long-term daily contact with neighboring Mon Khmer and Thai cultures caused a profound structural shift.
They basically completely reorganized how they think about action. Modern Karen languages use a subject-verb-object, or SVO structure, so I eat the apple, exactly like we do in English.
Right.
And this structural flip happened alongside a heavy influx of new loanwords from those neighboring groups.
It is like linguistic tectonic plates shifting beneath them. The core grammar of the language didn't just borrow a few new nouns for trading. It fundamentally rearranged its very foundation to adapt to its surroundings.
Incredible.
And because geography separated different pockets of the Karen people, this shift didn't just create one single updated language, it fractured into a whole family tree.
Yeah, so let's look at that family tree on the slide titled The 3 Pillars of the Karenic Family. The language branches into 3 main groups, and the differences are really stark. First, there is Sgaw Karen. This is the southern branch with roughly 2.2 million speakers, utilizing a complex system of 5 to 6 tones. In Sgaw, the word for water is pronounced E.
Okay. Then you have Pu Karen, which is another southern branch, but this one has about 1.52 million speakers and uses 4 to 5 tones. Their word for water is Hook.
Right.
And finally, there is Po Karen, a northern branch with roughly 860,000 speakers and a 4-tone system. Their word for water is Name.
And the key insight you have to pull from this slide is that the mutual intelligibility between these 3 branches is remarkably low. Despite having the exact same linguistic ancestry, they took entirely distinct evolutionary paths.
That is what really stands out to me. We aren't talking about a slight accent difference here, like, someone from New York trying to understand someone from London.
Not at all.
And name are completely different sounds for the most fundamental resource on Earth, water. If they cannot understand each other easily in spoken conversation, how do they manage to function together administratively or even trade on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the answer is found on our next slide. Sgaw Karen as the Highland lingua franca. Sgaw is really the dominant voice in the region. Because it has 2.2 million speakers, it represents nearly half of the entire Karen-speaking population.
And geographically, it has a massive reach. I mean, the Linglobe materials show it spanning across southern and southeastern Myanmar and bleeding heavily over the border into areas of Thailand.
Exactly. Because of that massive footprint, Sgaw historically serves as the de facto lingua franca in Karen majority areas. It is the language used within territories administered by the Karen National Union, or KNU.
Right.
So whether you are speaking Ku or Pello at home, Sgaw becomes the practical bridge for trade, administration, and cross-regional communication.
It's the administrative glue, really. But while Sgaw might be the most widely spoken, it certainly isn't the only voice that matters in the Highlands.
No, definitely not.
This is highlighted in the slide, distinct voices within the family. We need to look closely at Po and Pao. Po Karen represents a full 1/3 of all speakers, stretching across Mon State and the Irrawaddy Delta. And what makes P fascinating is that it is actually divided into Eastern and Western subdialects, and those subdialects are often mutually unintelligible themselves.
Yeah, so even within the sub-branch, there are severe communication barriers. And then there's the Palo branch, which is historically referred to as the Black Karen, primarily spoken up in Shan State.
Right.
And as a linguistic study, Palau is a gold mine. It features a highly unique four-tone system that retains ancient voiced, unvoiced phonetic contrasts.
Okay, let me stop you there. For anyone not studying linguistics, what does an ancient voiced, unvoiced phonetic contrast actually mean in practice?
That's a great question. So a voiced consonant is one where your vocal cords vibrate, like a B or a Z.
Okay.
An unvoiced one is where they don't, like a P or an S.
Yeah.
Ancient Tibeto-Burman languages had very specific rules about how these sounds interacted with the pitch of the vowels that followed them. Modern Sgaw and Paul eventually lost those ancient distinctions as they evolved, but Palo kept them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it effectively acts as a phonetic time capsule, preserving the literal sounds of their ancestors.
That is fascinating. It's like a living museum of the spoken word. But, having all these different complex spoken languages inevitably leads to a massive problem. How do you standardize a way to write them down?
Right, which is huge.
This leads us directly into the slide titled, The Evolution of Written Heritage. The origins of their scripts are incredibly complex, largely because they were heavily influenced by external forces. For Sgaw, you see an 1830s Burmese-based script developed by an American missionary named Jonathan Wade.
Yeah, and wait, just to clarify, something from the Linglobe materials Wade script is an abugida, right? Not an alphabet like English.
Correct. An abugida is a writing system where the basic letters are consonants and the vowels are written as secondary marks attached to those consonants rather than standing as equal letters on their own.
Right.
Wade used the Burmese abugida as a base. However, there is also a culturally adapted variant called Letalanya, which is used specifically by Buddhist communities to write the exact same language.
And the split doesn't end with Sgaw. PO is similarly divided. Buddhist Pu utilizes a mid-19th century Mon script base. Meanwhile, Christian Pu uses an entirely different 1840s Burmese script base. Perot, on the other hand, uses a modern adaptation of the Burmese script, but they had to invent their own unique tone markers just to accommodate that phonetic time capsule we talked about earlier.
It creates an incredibly fragmented written landscape. I mean, I have to push back on the mechanics of this for a second because it is both fascinating and, frankly, it sounds exhausting for the culture. You are telling me that religious affiliation, whether a community was converted by Christian missionaries or adhered to Buddhism, literally dictated the alphabet a community used to write the exact same spoken language.
It absolutely did. To understand the how and why behind this, you have to look at the motivations of the people making the scripts.
Okay.
Missionaries like Jonathan Wade wanted to translate the Bible into Karen languages so the locals could read it.
Yeah.
Since the Karen didn't have a standardized writing system at the time, the missionaries literally had to invent one from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah, they used the Burmese and Mon alphabets they had already learned, tweaked them to fit the Karen sounds, and taught them in mission schools.
So the script was intrinsically tied to religious conversion, education, and basically how these groups organized their modern communities. If you went to a Christian school, you learned one alphabet. If you learned at a Buddhist monastery, you learned another.
Exactly. It created a deep structural divide based purely on belief systems. But despite these massive divisions in theology and text, there is something much older and much deeper that keeps them united.
Yeah, and that unification is beautifully captured on the slide, unity transcending belief. Because despite those significant religious divisions, where being Buddhist or Christian dictates your regional settlement, your community leaders, and even the literal alphabet you write your name in, indigenous cultural practices remain the great unifier.
Yeah, the Linglobe materials show these highly tactile ancient rituals surviving to this day. Things like the annual dawn salutation to the flag we discussed earlier, or the communal wrist-tying ceremonies.
Why?
These aren't religious acts in the modern theological sense. They are ancestral acts.
The wrist-tying ceremony involves binding white threads around the wrists of community members, right? It's meant to call the spiritual essence back to the body and bind the community together.
Yes. And the reason this is so crucial to understand for you listening is that it proves a profound mechanism about human connection, a deeply rooted, shared cultural identity. These physical, communal acts of tying a thread or raising a flag can seamlessly supersede rigid religious dogma.
Yeah.
These rituals bind them in a shared blessing that goes far beyond any written script, whether it's an abugida or a Latin alphabet.
It grounds them back to the mist-covered highlands of our first slide. But that raises an urgent question about the present. I mean, how do these ancient, very physical, tactile rituals hold up in the digital age? Especially when you consider that decades of conflict have displaced so many of these people from those highlands entirely.
Well, we find that answer on our final slide, Heritage in the Modern World. The culture today relies on three modern pillars to survive displacement. First is the diaspora. Decades of being forced from their homes haven't broken them. Instead, they have forged vibrant, incredibly resilient global communities across the United States, Canada, Australia, and Europe.
Right. And second is revitalization. They are actively utilizing modern tools, digital platforms, social media networks, and dedicated language apps to teach these complex dialects across oceans and to digitally document the oral histories of their elders before they are lost.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the third pillar is adaptation. This is really the crucial takeaway for you listening today. This culture isn't frozen in time. They aren't just preserving the past in a museum display or a textbook.
Yeah.
They're actively evolving, merging their ancestral Highland knowledge with the instant connectivity of a globalized world.
It is a universal lesson in resilience. It shows us that identity isn't just about where you are physically standing. It is about how you adapt your symbols and languages to wherever you are forced to go next.
Exactly. Which leaves you with one final thought to mull over. What if the ultimate survival tool for an ancient, endangered language isn't its physical geography, but rather its ability to adapt and live inside the smartphones in our pockets?
Thank you for watching until the end. We will continue to bring you many more languages from around the world. Please subscribe to our channel. See you next time on the Linglobe channel.